I bought this shirt a while ago on Depop, which if you're not familiar is an online secondhand marketplace. It's vintage Charlotte Russe, a brand from the early 2000s. But before this shirt ended up in my closet, it had a much longer journey. A journey shaped by an industry built on speed, disposability, and mass consumption. Fast fashion is a model of clothing production that rapidly turns runway trends into low-cost garments. So instead of releasing a few collections each year, brands now release hundreds, sometimes thousands of styles on a near daily basis. Designs move from runway to retail in a matter of days or weeks, not months. But this wasn't always the case. The acceleration of clothing production can be traced back to the Industrial Revolution, when technologies like the sewing machine made mass production possible. Fast fashion as we know it today emerged in the late 1990s to early 2000s, when brands like Zara and H&M began quickly producing runway trends at low costs. Today, companies like Shein have pushed this model even further, producing and shipping new designs in as little as 3 days.
Rather than functioning as a cohesive clothing manufacturer with its own factories like Zara, Shein is more like Amazon, a huge marketplace selling clothes from thousands of independent Chinese factories. And it treats those factories sort of like Uber treats its drivers. The factories are hooked up to Shein's software that collects real-time feedback about which items are selling well and which aren't. The software then sends alerts to the factory owners' phones to ramp up or slow down production. It's Zara's small batch production on steroids.
At a first glance, it doesn't sound bad. It's democratizing fashion, right? But when something is this cheap, someone or something is paying the price. You see, fast fashion relies heavily on cheap synthetic fibers, materials like polyester, nylon, and acrylic. Polyester, for example, is a plastic-like material made from oil. And from drilling to chemical processing, polyester production generates high levels of greenhouse gases. According to the Council of Fashion Designers of America, 31.3 pounds of greenhouse gases are released per 2.2 pounds of polyester produced. I spoke with Dr. Jacqueline Salmond, a sustainability professor at Florida Gulf Coast University, and she says that even after a polyester item makes it into your closet, it still has an impact on the environment.
When we wear clothing, we shed fibers. Obviously, with cotton, fiber shedding is not a problem because it's a natural material. Whereas obviously with fiber shedding from polyester, for example, that can be problematic, adds to microplastics in our world, all of those kinds of things.
But the cycle doesn't end there.
The materials that these things are made out of mean that they don't last anyway. So, they frequently look so much worse after they've been washed twice. Most people wouldn't want to wear them anyway. And so then it leads to disposal. So it then means that also then has a huge impact on climate change.
But the cost isn't just environmental, it's human. Fast fashion depends on cheap labor, often in unsafe and exploitative conditions. According to a 2021 investigation by Public Eye, workers in Shein factories reported working up to 75 hours per week, far exceeding legal limits. The investigation also found blocked emergency exits, no formal contracts, and widespread violation of labor laws. But these conditions persist because speed and low prices literally depend on them. Social media has further popularized fast fashion through ads, trends, and algorithms. But it also changes the way that we communicate about fast fashion. Late philosopher Jürgen Habermas argues that social media has blurred the line between public discourse and private influence. He describes the public sphere as a space for rational discussion among citizens. But in today's digital environment, that space has changed. So instead of fostering critical debate, social media platforms prioritize attention and engagement. This leads to distorted communication, where visibility matters more than truth. Rather than acting as citizens on social media, people are positioned as consumers. This is only worsened by the algorithmic patterns that reinforce what users already like and believe. Furthermore, creating echo chambers that prioritize content over critical discussion. And even though there is ample information, including investigations, news articles, documentaries, and even social media content about fast fashion and its harmful effects, echo chambers run so deep that consumers continue justifying their fast fashion purchases, sometimes avoiding anti-fast fashion content overall. Within this social media system, influencers also play a central role. According to a 2023 study by Business Wire, nearly 70% of consumers trust influencer recommendations more than traditional advertising. And 81% have purchased or considered purchasing a product after seeing it recommended online. For fashion creators, new clothing is new content. This encourages the development of microtrends, styles that rise and fall in a matter of months or even weeks. And fast fashion becomes the only way to keep up with this pace, allowing consumers to entirely replace their wardrobes at a low cost. And because it's so cheap and accessible, this behavior isn't limited to influencers. Anyone can participate.
Oh my gosh. Shein haul. Hey girls, let's do a Shein try on haul.
Let's go through it all and do an unboxing.
Shein haul.
A Shein haul.
Let's do a giant Shein haul. When I say giant, yeah.
Do a Shein haul with your girl.
Open my $400 Shein order with me. I have a huge Shein haul. Okay, I'm gonna do the dump.
On TikTok, hashtag SheinHaul has over 1 million posts. These videos normalize buying clothing in massive quantities, not out of necessity, but for content and visibility. But not everyone is participating in this cycle. While social media often reinforces fast fashion consumption, other spaces exist that challenge it. I went to a vintage thrift market in Miami called Magic City Flea. It's held every Sunday from 1 to 6 p.m., and many other markets like this exist throughout the United States. While visiting the market, I spoke with Sabrina Wood, the 27-year-old owner of Hand-Me-Down Segunda Mano, a second-hand vintage clothing business, and her motives are strongly tied to sustainability.
Sustainability was actually the main reason why I did start. I have a strongly dislike for fast fashion, and I really don't like seeing a lot of people go that route.
Wood even uses her social media pages to post educational content about shopping sustainably and avoiding fast fashion. According to a 2026 Capital One shopping report, secondhand shopping has grown rapidly, with over 80% of Gen Z either thrifting or wanting to. And on TikTok, hashtag thrifting has millions of posts, making sustainability feel trendy and accessible. But as thrifting becomes more popular, it also becomes commodified by social media audiences. This includes users participating in consumption trends similar to those of fast fashion. Furthermore, it's hard for people to shop sustainably as fast fashion enters thrift stores at accelerated rates.
So when I go through the racks, like at a Goodwill or any actual physical thrift store, there is a lot of fast fashion. I barely find vintage like how I used to. Whereas when I go to the bins, I do find a lot of vintage pieces, so I do feel like fast fashion has been overpowering the vintage scene.
So while these groups challenge the system, they can't fully escape it. And as people attempt to educate the public sphere, fast fashion companies adapt their messaging. This often takes the form of greenwashing, which is misleadingly marketing products as sustainable when they're really not. For example, H&M's Conscious collection faced a class action lawsuit over misleading sustainability claims. And in order to defend itself against harmful labor practices, Shein invited influencers on all expenses paid factory tours in 2023 to reshape public perception.
The most fascinating thing is that I've seen the exact process of Shein clothing. I've seen how it's designed, I've seen how it's made, now I'm going to see how it's packaged and shipped off, and I feel like that's such a unique perspective to be able to see as not only a creator but a consumer of Shein.
But many people called them out in the comments. These curated experiences showed ideal conditions, directly contradicting investigative reports, and allowing people to continue justifying their fast fashion purchases. Because the public sphere isn't just disrupted by social media influencers, it's also corporations trying to change how you behave and think. Fast fashion offers more than clothing. It offers identity, validation, and belonging. It's also cheap, convenient, and constant. Over time, this reshapes how we see ourselves, not as citizens, but as consumers. And this is exactly how corporations like Shein and H&M want us to see ourselves, because it's easier to sell to us. At this point, consumerism has become so deeply ingrained into society that people equate freedom with the ability to buy what they want, without realizing how those choices are shaped. So while individual choices and education efforts matter,
I do believe we're moving in the right direction with all the education and the secondhand movement.
they aren't enough on their own.
Regulation of some sort is the only way that we're going to have an impact on this. I don't know what that would necessarily look like, because so much of this is driven by countries or states that value freedom, right? So, America's very keen on freedom and, being able to buy whatever you want across the world. And the retailers like that because they make money.
Meaningful change requires structural intervention, including regulation, labor protections, and environmental policy. Without it, the cycle continues. And that shirt, it's never just a shirt.